Hey Trent, how's it going today?
Good. How are you, Austin? It's good to be on the podcast here.
Hey, great to be on the podcast. It is great to have one of our 2025 Harper Hack like runner-ups actually on here to discuss about your project, right? The project or the platform that you built for Harper Hack. So for those who haven't heard anything about what you built, can you please explain like what is it that you built and even just why, right? So
Yeah. So first off, thanks for hosting the hackathon, Austin. It was awesome to compete, and it was great to use the Harper platform. Um, so I built something named Convo IQ. So what is Convo IQ? So Convo IQ is basically a software in which you can upload any MP4 file of any conversation and then automatically create what's called components with AI, where you can then take those components and create custom dashboards. So the overarching idea is essentially any conversation, whether it's a podcast like we're on now, or whether it's a sales call, or whether it's some random YouTube video or something that you want to extract some sort of insights from, you can essentially create that and turn it into a dashboard that's repeatable across other podcasts or other sales calls.
nice, nice, nice. And what drove you to build Convo IQ?
So I've been interested in this idea for a while. One reason is that it involves AI code gen and then having the code gen that the AI generates displaying a UI back to the user. So I think that this is something that we're seeing more and more use cases pop up with the LLMs getting better and more reliable. And it's a very untapped space, but it's something that I've been very interested in. I think like the world is slowly sort of moving towards this. I think there's
Yeah.
lots of things
Yep.
that need to be figured out as far as like
Yep.
security and how you make it reliable and how you make it intuitive for the user. But yeah, at a high level, it was just like that it was technically challenging, that it solved something cool, and that yeah, I knew it'd be fun for me to build basically.
Ooh,
Yeah.
nice, nice, nice. And when I think of like Convo IQ, well, first off, I'm like really, really curious. Like, before I even try to like express my thoughts, what drove you to sort of choose the name Convo IQ? Like, what
Yeah.
all went behind that, man? I'm really curious.
Yeah, it's
Pretty cool
interesting. So I
name. Pretty cool
actually
name.
iterated. Yeah, I actually iterated through a few different names, and I ultimately chose Convo IQ because as I was building it, I realized that it could be something that's generic to any conversation. So at first, my use case that I was thinking of was a sales call, right? How can we make dashboarding to help sales reps, judge, get feedback on their calls, get the summary of their calls, get, how many stutters they had, how many filler words they had, their strengths and weaknesses, like as if there was an AI coach judging them. But I quickly realized, like, you could very easily extend this to a podcast or, um, lots of other environments, basically anything that's a conversation between two people and that you can create a transcript from, you can now extend this to. So, and then the IQ at the end is just like, intellectual quotient. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
basically, I was using that word just because we're using the AI a lot to sort of judge
Hmm.
the call. And so
Yeah.
you have that layer of intelligence in. So Convo IQ is
I
the
like that.
together.
I like that. I like that. When you talked about like, hey, things like such as filler words or like the ums and uhs, it's really interesting because I used to go through Toastmasters. I don't know if you've ever heard of Toastmasters, but this really reminds me of Toastmasters and seeing this expanded into like a more like using AI to sort of give that feedback, right? I think is great. It's great. So it's really cool. And sort of diving into it a bit further, like, all right, we talked about the name, we talked about just an overview of the platform. I really wanted to dive in even like to the technical parts of
Yeah.
what, how did you build this out? And before we even get into that, I want to know, like, what is your history? Are you an engineer yourself? Like, so I'd love to know this.
So I am an engineer myself. I started coding about 10 years ago in high school, and I studied computer science at the University of Virginia. I then got my master's degree following that.
Nice.
And I started my career at Capital One. So I worked there for around 2 years. And then for the last year, I've been at this AI data training company named Invisible Technologies. And we've trained 80% of the world's top models. So we can't necessarily say the clients we work with, but you can imagine it's a lot of the biggest
It's a
AI
lot of
players.
models. Yeah, that's pretty big. That's pretty
Yeah.
big. So yeah.
And so I've been there for the last year, and that's been a great experience as well. So I've sort of been like the infrastructure layer of a lot of the AI innovations. Um, so yeah, and I've always just loved to build things. I've always just built things on the side. Um, I've always had fun building random personal projects, entering hackathons.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Nice, nice, nice. So you consider yourself, like a back end, more back end heavy than anything and
I
everything
would
like
say
that? What would
I'm
you?
more back end heavy in general. All my corporate roles have been back end heavy. But I do like front end a lot, and
Hey,
I have dove deep into front end like many times, and I care a lot about UX when I'm building things. Like if you see Convo IQ, I really thought very hard about the front end.
I could tell
Yeah,
as a fellow engineer who primarily does front end. When I
yeah,
was playing around with the the UI, I was like, oh, this is very well thought out. And I mean, even given like the time period, right, of like what 2 weeks,
yeah,
like it was very well thought out. And so I really like not only just the UI but also like the UX as well. So
yeah.
yeah,
I really thought I went through multiple iterations of like writing things down and then going to Figma and then trying things. And I think what I finally came to, if you look at the app, it has sort of three side panel tabs, convos, components, and dashboards. I think one thing that I really like that I did is that actually all three of those sidebar tabs, when you really look at it, it's essentially a CRUD on those
hmm,
different data models.
yep.
And so actually there's very high levels of consistency between those three pages. So yeah.
That's nice. And yeah, now diving into the technical aspect of things, like how did you build out Convo IQ? Like what all went into it? What was essentially the tech stack behind it? If you can
Yeah.
elaborate on that.
So this is actually something that was that I thought was really cool that I did. And it's basically when I first started my project, I didn't just jump into building it right away. The
Hmm.
first thing I actually did was mod like Harper to the tech stack I wanted.
Mm,
Wasn't very difficult. Um, so I think the original I think I probably could have done more research on this, but the original boilerplate for Harper I used was like very vanilla stack, like
I see.
JavaScript,
Yep.
HTML. And I obviously love React. I use React for everything. I love TypeScript.
Yeah.
I use TypeScript for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Something like Tailwind is like, you don't
Love
need it,
Tailwind.
but
Yep. Hmm.
I just in general like using
Yeah.
Tailwind.
Hmm.
So I basically built the first thing I did was just take the boilerplate repo and turn it into using all of that stack that I wanted.
See. Nice.
Well, and to do that, it was it really wasn't there were some docs in Harper that allowed me to do that very easily. And yeah, so it was kind of interesting. That was the first thing I chose to do. I think normally when you do hackathon, you want to
Yeah.
get like the core right away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
base that was very strong, and then that really helped me. Like another thing I did as well is I deployed immediately to the cloud with Harper, like before I even coded anything. Whereas normally people, like I feel like ride the local dev as long
Yeah.
as possible and then they deploy to
Yep.
the cloud.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
I really liked that I tried to attack those unknowns first,
Yep. That's
Yeah.
always big, even for me. Like I'm always like, all right, cool. I've like even just built out the boilerplate. I was all right, cool. Let's deploy this, right? And so like after every feature implemented or whatnot, deploying it, deploying it, deploying it. I don't. It's always because you end up when you wait towards the end, you end up encountering a lot of issues that you could have probably fixed earlier on. And so yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that. And uh, even taking a step further into that, like you talked about like using Harper, right? Like first and shaping your application and sort of, building on top of that. What was it like? Like, I guess like sort of using Harper to construct, like, let's say your schema and whatnot, right? What was it like just constructing your schema and everything like that to generate your endpoints and building around that versus, I guess like other dev workflows, right? That you and I, honestly are primarily used to, right?
Yeah,
So what was it? Yeah, what was that like?
that's right. So I've tried a lot of dev workflows. Like I just experiment with a lot of things. Um, I've done lots of like rolling my own Postgres instances for hackathons, used GraphQL and various other areas. I've used NoSQL a lot. Harper, I think, really excelled in this area, and it was something that I was really surprised by. Um, Basically, I think this was probably the fastest I'd ever had a database. Like I was able to do my database migrations, get the database up and running, and have GraphQL out of the box was just a huge plus also.
Mm,
Yeah, I can tell you guys have put a lot of thought into the dev flows of Harper as far as like how the database works and how it integrates with the rest of the application. So yeah, with Harper, I was very easily able to just go into the GraphQL schema file and just add new, like change my data layer, like change
yep,
my data schema,
yep,
and then just deploy, and then it's live. Um, Another thing that was very nice is deploying to the cloud as well. So I think I was like, even on the free plan that I was using, the latency was like, I think you guys, it was like 86 milliseconds latency or somewhere in the
yeah,
80 milliseconds of
yeah,
latency.
yeah, something
Um,
like that. I think it's like, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's pretty incredible. Like it's the kind of thing that I think a lot of developers that are newer would see the Harper platform and just like click on it and click continue. But as someone who's built lots of these systems before with, like front end, back end, like globally distributed. At Capital One, I was on a team where we essentially handled like 10,000 transactions per second across the entire like US and Canada. Yeah. And like getting that level of of availability for like a distributed system is incredibly difficult. And to be able to do that in one button click is something that I think is pretty incredible. Yeah.
yeah. That's awesome, and that's really really great to hear. Even me myself, I'm always like in awe. I'm like, oh, this is quite like this is pretty great, right?
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, now that you've built this out, right, and I mean, you've done quite a bit of work. Again, I'm still amazed. Like over the course of like 2 weeks, I think all the judges were like, whoa, like right with even all the other folks who built out projects. I'm really curious to know like what does it look like for like what are some things either you plan on fixing, and if even on top of that, like what does it look like for like features, right? Other features that you probably wanted to implement, and things you probably want to do like just moving forward. So that was a
Yeah.
bit of a mouthful of a question. So
No worries, no worries. Um,
let's
I want to, can I share screen here and show
absolutely,
that?
yeah, you should be able to. Yeah, absolutely. Please, yeah, share it. You should be able to.
Yeah, let's do that. I think giving them some context would be here.
All right.
Okay. I'll reset and then we'll start.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I think the best thing to do is just share the app here to start, and then I'll share lots of the future plans here as well. Because I actually think there's lots of improvements we can add on to this here. Let me get add in share. So here's Convo IQ. Here's what I built. This isn't running on localhost, but it's deployed as well. Now we can see the like 3 side panel layout that I was talking about earlier with convos, components, and dashboards. Um, these are essentially all just things on the data schema underneath the hood where we're running like CRUD on. So we're creating components and they have a data model for that. There's components that have a data model for that, and there's dashboards that have a data model for that. So if we go into components, we can click here and we can go ahead and take a look at one of the components that I uploaded. So we can see here, this is this is my roommate, and this is a call he was in. And we can see here we have the transcript on the right. So this automatically actually hit DeepGram's AI system and transcribed it. Then you see we grab some metadata that's important for us querying on this data later on, like the duration of the call, the words, characters, the speakers, etc. Here's a full video player as well. So watch it and skip to different parts, full screen,
Mhm,
playback speed, everything, picture in
mhm.
picture downloads. Um, Yeah, so I think one thing that I did that's very cool here that I do want to highlight is I created this for every single Convo component or dashboard, but we can automatically rename titles using AI.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
if I click here, you see this is the file name that I uploaded it to. Now we can see it just auto named it to Legacy Business Partnership Discussion. And while this seems very trivial, I worked very hard to make it very simple. On the actual back end, I think there's some really interesting pieces here. So I'm using OpenRouter, and with OpenRouter, I can define like what exact models and providers for the LLM I want to use very easily.
Hmm.
What I actually did here is I'm using GPT OSS 120B, which is a very fast model, using it through Grok, GROQ, which is
Mm.
the provider I've found that's the fastest. So, and then I have a system prompt to generate the title. It says something along the lines of create me a 2 to 6 word title for this transcript. I add the transcript in, and then I also add some other metadata that is important as well. And we can see here the title generation is like about a second and a half. And that's actually hitting an LLM on the back end.
Amazing.
And then even if when you go to the cloud, it's still about a second and a half. So I think like, I'm just guessing, but my guess is that this is probably one of the fastest LLM calls that we've seen on Harper. Um,
Yeah.
this could be like globally distributed, and this gen could be like less than a second, or, I think it's like P50, a second and a half is
Yep.
pretty incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially for LLMs. That's
Yeah.
pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a couple thousand tokens of context as well, because we're jamming the entire transcript in. I actually originally tried to jam just parts of the transcript, but what I found is you really need the full transcript to generate a good title,
Mm.
because the conversation changes a lot throughout.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, I'll get to your question here in a second, Austin.
Oh
How
no
come?
no. No. Continue.
So, here's the components. So this is something that I've worked a long time on. So the components are like the building block of the dashboards. So we can see this is a dashboard here. Now, if like a dashboard were a house, the components would be a brick, essentially. So we can actually see, like, if we go into the dashboards edit page, we can see all the components I've created on the right here. So in this case scenario, I have 2 components, the speaker time analysis and the call summary, right? So let's say I go into the call summary here. So here we can see there's sort of 3 panes here. On the left, we have the configuration. In the middle, we have the preview. On the right, we have the agent. So on the configuration on the left is actually all the most important data that we have, or it's just all the data that comprises this component on the back end.
Yep.
So you can see we have a title, we have a component type, which I locked to LLM. The one thing I was going to add in the future was a code component, which just runs static analysis or runs like a deterministic algorithm on the transcripts.
Yep.
And then you can see the 3 core ingredients that I use to create a component is the prompt, the data, which is really the structured output that the LLM gives, and the UI code, which takes this data type and renders it in the form of a UI. So we can see here, this component is to create a 3-sentence summary of the call, essentially. And we can see here, this is the data type that the LLM's getting exported. I know this is very technical,
Oh no,
but
I'm loving this. Please continue. This is gold. Like this is amazing, especially for
yeah.
podcasts. So yeah, please continue.
So this is the structured output of the LLM. So essentially how this works is, let's say I go, okay, so yeah, essentially how this works is you can select a conversation and then generate the prompt data UI code. And from these 3 ingredients, we'll be able to render something in the component on the front end here. So I think I've just changed the code, so now the generate button doesn't work, which is kind of sad, but could probably fix that, but it might take me a sec. But regardless, let's check out how the agent works on the right here. So I think this is one of the coolest things that I added here. So you see at the top, we can choose what do we want the agent to edit. Do we want it to edit the prompt, the data, or the UI code? So let's say we want it to edit all three. This is a default. I can deselect doing this. Let's say we want to edit all three. So now what we can do is, let's say I want to change this card to be a 4-sentence summary instead of a 3-sentence summary. So I could go ahead and enter a prompt, say, hello, can you change this component to, instead of providing a 3-sentence summary, provide a 4-sentence summary? So you see here, now we have our prompt. Another thing I have is you can select the conversation as a test for the LLM to run on to verify that the changes it makes still works for the new component. There's just a little UX thing that I added. It's not critical, but it's nice to have a test set. So, because when you're doing AI code gen, there's lots of things that can go wrong. Um, so let's say I want to just choose this call. Now I can click submit. And you see, this is a very cursor-like flow on the right. If you've used Cursor AI, the
Yep.
IDE,
Yep.
I actually sort of designed this UI after Cursor. And because I found that they like really have the best example of like an agent iterating on user basically entered prompts. So you can see here, it's cooking, and
Cooking.
look over here, and we should see this update to a 4-sentence summary when it's done. Boom. Okay. So now we can see now it's a 4-sentence summary, and we can see in the data output, its min items is 4 and its max items is 4. Exactly. So let's check out what the agent actually did here. So I essentially built this agent completely in Harper. It's essentially all in the resources file in the back end, which is just one file that I can write code in, and then automatically it's read by Harper and deployed to the cloud when I want it to deploy. So let's check out what the agent did here. So you see, okay, I'll help you change the component from a 3-sentence summary to a 4-sentence summary. So I'm using Claude to do this, partially because Claude is just the best in terms of coding, but also because I had $200 of free Claude credits.
That would help.
So we can see here, the first thing it did was a tool call to read the component. That actually just messed up. Dang it.
No. It's always funny when you demo live, things always happen. If it makes it any better, I did a conference talk demoing live, and like I was like, oh man, the whatever I wrote from scratch, it just didn't work, and it was like a one-liner that I accidentally did. So don't worry. Yeah, no, please.
Yeah, I actually remember that button's broken.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, so let's check out what the agent did here now. So we can see at the top, we had, it says, I'll help you change the component from a 3-sentence summary to a 4-sentence summary. So it sort of read what I was able to do. And it was able to make a tool call to read the current component. So what this means is it's just reading this data. So now, next thing it did is it said, okay, I'll make changes to all 3 parts to support 4-sentence summary. The prompt, the structured output, which is the data, and the UI code. So now it edited the prompt. So that's one of the tools that I gave the agent. So essentially what it's doing is editing this prompt on the back end. And so it probably switched it from, to say 3-sentence to 4-sentence. Then it edited the structured output, as we can see here. So it changed probably the min items from 3 to 4 and the max items from 3 to 4. So this is just telling the LLM to return a JSON with this schema, if that makes sense. And then we can see it's running test component. So this goes back to the testing, where now on the conversation, it's using the conversation that I entered with the prompt, and it's testing it. to verify that there's no like errors with the code gen, because this very it's very difficult to manage these systems when we
Yeah.
want the AI do all the code gen and then we're passing the call through the AI. It's a very non-deterministic system, and we need to sort of create some guardrails to make it
Mm.
work.
Yep.
So next, it's just fetching the conversation transcript. So this is the example conversation that I added in with this prompt. I created a tool to allow it to fetch the conversation transcript. So you can see like one of the parameters in the tool call was 5,000 max chars. So essentially this is select the first five, or just give me back the first 5,000 characters in the transcript. Uh, and that's just because the transcript can be very long. I didn't want to bloat the context of it grabbing the whole transcript if it didn't need to. Sometimes I would notice the agent would call this tool call twice because it would want to fetch more of the transcript than it had before. So, and actually, when I made this tool call, I explicitly stated that. I sort of said, if you just want to peek at the transcript, do like 5,000 characters. If you want to get a higher, if you want to understand more about the transcript or the call, because maybe the output's failing or something, then you can fetch 20,000 characters or something. And then we see here, it's basically saying it's done. It's saying the UI code doesn't need any changes because it's already dynamically rendered using the .map. So it's actually very smart. The agent's basically figuring out that this UI code is not dependent on how many sentences the summary is. It is already dynamic using .map, like here, to just loop over all the sentences. So it knows it doesn't even need to change that. And then it does a final read, and then it sort of gives us the updates saying what it did and what this means.
Nice.
And so now we can see it updated here. Now let's take a look at the dashboards. I think this is the final component. Everything we've led to now is leading to this. If we click into dashboards here,
Yep.
this is one example dashboard that I've made. Let's say I want to make a new one. I can click here. And you see we have an edit mode of the dashboard. So that's what we're in now. So these are two components that I currently have, but we could easily extend this to as many components as we want, just making them in the component builder that we just saw. So let's say we have the speaker time analysis. You can see this is a React grid that we're using here. And let's say I want the speaker time analysis to be here on the dashboard. Then I want the call summary to be here on the dashboard. Now I just made it so that that UI code that's getting rendered in the component will actually render here instead.
Okay.
So, okay, let's say we want to name the dashboard as well. We can do our title gen here as well. So you see, actually we haven't published this yet, so the name isn't working yet. So let's go ahead and publish it. Or this is the default name if it's an empty dashboard.
Yeah.
Go ahead and try it again here now. Now we can see it's actually using the components as context to give the name.
Nice.
And now that we published it, we can go to view and we can see it here.
Oh, nice.
Let's say we want to edit the dashboard again. Let's say we want actually this component to be down here instead, and we want it to extend basically the full way. We want to center this one up here.
Yep.
Now we can publish and view it again. At least the dashboard looks a little bit different.
Wonderful. That is amazing.
So that's sort of the overall flow, but there's still a few things that could definitely improve, and I'll sort of go over that here now.
Okay, please do.
One important thing to note is that although the hackathon was 2 weeks, I'm just terrible at, I'm a big procrastinator. So I built this in 3 days, actually.
You built this in 3 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you look at my GitHub, like you can see evidence of that. Like I did my first commit and then my last commit within 3 days. Yeah.
This is phenomenal for 3 days. Wow. That is amazing.
I think it's very impressive. I think it speaks a lot to Harper being able to abstract a lot of the complicated database migrations and deploying to the cloud. Can just focus on like UI, UX, and backend functionality. That was absolutely huge. And also thanks to Claude 4, because I use a lot of AI to build it. And it was doing really, really well. It
That's
was
awesome.
pretty much one-shotting every prompt that I had, which is pretty
Wow, that's amazing.
um so I'll just go through the app and sort of share certain things that could easily improve. There's lots of low-hanging fruit here that if I even had another day, I would have improved here. So, for example, we see in the convos, I have like a preview pane here that says, um, this is actually just like the middle frame in the MP4 file. In the components, I don't have any preview here, when this could easily be like what the component actually is. So that was the overall vision, was to create like a little snapshot of what the component was. So you could see something a little bit. Yeah. So you could just see a little bit as to what it was. Same with the dashboards here. I wanted to add little previews.
Mhm.
Um, I think another thing as well is right now, sadly, the generate button is, I think it's working, but it's just disabled for whatever reason. But if I could click this generate button, then we'd actually see the
Yes.
component rendering here.
Okay.
Um, Another thing I wanted to improve as well is a lot of times these components are they're made to be a specific size. So if you
Mm.
generate the code for like the summary component,
Yeah.
it might, maybe it's, if we look at the dashboard here, maybe it's only supposed to be like 4 blocks in width to like 8 blocks in width.
Mhm.
Once we make it bigger, if we make it the full length of the width, then it
Mhm.
just starts looking weird and
I see.
the UI gets kind of off.
Yep.
Um, so that was something I wanted to add, was sort of like a min width, a max
Mhm.
width, like a min height and max height. I would sort of constrain that would, yeah, it would just constrain how the components get put together in the dashboard a little bit more. And I think those constraints would make things more reliable and less random.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, there was certain things that could improve with the agent as well. Like these things have one thing I've sort of learned building this sort of agent flow. This was like sort of one of the first times I built like a full-fledged agent like this. I built one website creator, but it was much more bare bones than this. And yeah, if you look at tools like Lovable and Base 44, I mean, those are companies that are like essentially just a bunch of, they're basically just wrappers over LLMs, which is really sophisticated and precise tool calling. And you can see like, and those are literally, some of the fastest growing companies in the world. So even though actually I put a lot of time into the agent to make it reliable here, there was lots of stuff I could do to make it even more reliable. Um, Different tools I could give it, things along those lines. Um, yeah. And then the dashboards, this is something that I didn't get to fully finish, but the idea here was that you could select a conversation and then click generate here, and then it would run that pipeline on all of these, and you'd actually
Mm.
see data pop up. So these things
That's
are
nice.
not trivial. Like it's
Mhm.
using code gen.
Yeah.
It's really using the AI to code gen and then rendering on the front end. And there's tons of UX challenges with that, security challenges.
Yep.
I think like, yeah, I just wanted to attack a big problem and just see like where I could get in the few days I had. Yeah.
I honestly think you did a phenomenal job tackling this problem. And yeah, like you did a spectacular job. So like hands down. So but yeah, as I said, that was a phenomenal demo. I'm glad you were able to like demo to us, specifically Convo IQ. Again, while I've seen it, I know a lot of folks who are watching this have not. And again, like this was amazing. You did a spectacular job on, I mean, just hackathon in general, and just yeah, I mean, 3 days. So
Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate it, Austin. It was great to meet some of the Harper team on the some of the hackathon calls. It was a really fun project. I'm excited to get runner up in my Harper credits to build some more stuff here.
hey, can't wait to see what you build. All right, you have a phenomenal day, and thank you so much.
Yep. Appreciate it, Austin. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.